We're going to be talking to David Icke, icon of awakening, here in just a moment. DavidIcke.com. I'm Alex Jones, of course, of Infowars.com. It is the 21st day of June 2012 on this Thursday transmission. Here's some of what's coming up after David leaves us. The new TSA checkpoints expanding outside the airports, trusted traveler, but they're going to keep the groping, just add more with the hope that maybe if you behave yourself, you won't have to be abused. Total Pavlovian psychological conditioning, we told you a decade ago. After they terrorize you with the TSA, they would give you the solution, the cashless society, face scanning to buy and sell. This begins with the TSA, authorizing you to have jobs, to travel. It's an open announcement. That's how we knew all this was coming, the highway checkpoints, all of it. It's happening worldwide, by the way, standardized. Big Supreme Court announcements are set to come out today or in the next few days on socialist health care, eugenics health care, all of it. House panel votes to cite Holder for contempt of Congress. Obama pulls a Nixon and cites executive privilege. But you can't do that for crimes. You can only do that for private government operations, private meetings with ambassadors and people. You can't do it with shipping guns to Mexico as a false flag terror attack. Will this false flag terror attack that's killed thousands on both sides of the border bring this criminal to justice? And is it a good thing? We'll ask David Icke here in a moment. Is it good to punish a puppet? Does it scare other puppets not to follow their master's orders? It's a big victory. Fast and Furious came out because ATF wasn't pure evil, started leaking it. Also coming up, they're running new TV ads saying whites are inherently racist and bad. This is to create racial division, right as many race wars break out. And many blacks believe whites are evil and are now physically attacking them. The media is saying this is a great thing. They want us at each other's throats. We're also going to get into Australia plays its part in, quote, going green. Carbon taxes start next week. They say you'll be arrested if you criticize the carbon taxes. You cannot make up the magnitude of this. We're going to be breaking it all down today. And joining us now is David Icke. I haven't talked to David, best-selling author, former champion, goalie, BBC anchor, news and sports. I say head of the Green Party. He's here with us, former head of the Green Party. He's here with us today as he joins us every few months, graciously out of his busy schedule, to continue to chronicle where we are from his perspective on the map of awakening, fear versus love. And David, I don't ever do pre-interviews with you. So much is happening, but things are becoming so clear to those of us that are awakening. It's always a process of always still awakening more. I wouldn't say I'm awake, but compared to those that are in deep sleep, we are certainly on fire with the awakening. Out of the gates, what is front and center on David Icke's radar?
Well, a lot of things, really, Alex, not least sitting in Britain this summer. We have a nightmare of Illuminati satanic rituals called celebrations of the Queen's 60th year on the throne and the Olympics and all that stuff. And it's all going on simultaneously. I mean, the Queen stuff has died down a bit now, but the Olympics is coming. So that's a major part of it. It's, you know, the symbolism is just an open book to anyone who studied it, what's been going on. But you bring it, an interesting point up there about people awakening and people not awakening. And it absolutely fits with what I've been saying and writing for years about the nature of the way we experience reality. For me, we have what I call body-mind, which is that which basically experiences the world through the conscious mind of the five senses. But we are in our infinite self, consciousness, awareness, that is beyond this reality of the five senses. And the idea in a non-manipulated, non-suppressed and twisted, distorted, inverted world, we would have the connection and the experience of the five senses. We'd be in this world, in this reality, in this frequency band we call visible light, the electromagnetic field. But we would not be totally of it, because we would have a connection and an influence from levels of our awareness, not some external guy in a spacesuit, in a UFO, the greater level of our own consciousness, which would be giving us a fix on from that greater perspective, from the top of the hill, if you like, of what we're actually experiencing. So you're in this world because you're interacting with it through the five senses, but you're not totally of this world in terms of the way you're perceiving it. Now, the whole basis of this conspiracy, the foundation of it, is to enslave our point of attention in the five senses, in what I call body-mind. Because then, once that influence of the greater self has been silenced, if you like, then the only place that people are going to try to get a fix on who they are, where they are, and the nature of the reality they're experiencing is to look outward through the eyes and the ears and look at the information that's coming back at them from that direction. And who is that? That's the education system, which has been set up specifically to program children and young people to become the non-challenging, non-questioning slaves as adults. It's the global media 24/7 in all its incredible forms now and expressions, which is feeding us a fake version of reality and a program version of reality. Peer pressure's doing it from people who've been through the same system. Parents are doing it to children because they've been through the same programming. And so it goes on. And so you get locked in this reality of little me, of I have no power, of I'm so limited, which is where they want us. But when you start to awaken, you know, these truisms, these phrases that we use and throw away all the time have profound truths in them, like, will you open your mind? When you open your mind, you let other levels of your awareness in, and suddenly you are not only seeing things, perceiving things that you couldn't see before, you're now seeing how dots connect, which you couldn't see before. Sure. Because you were in the world of the dots. Now you're accessing a level of self that can see how the dots connect. And not only that,
you're pulling back, basically. You're pulling back and seeing the larger image.
You're expanding your consciousness. It's like the difference between standing at a wall and looking at close range at a brick, and then pulling out and realizing the brick is part of a house, the house is part of a street, the street is part of a town, the town's part of a country, the country's part of a world, etc., which you see from the bigger picture.
And it's incredible to see the global standardization that you've talked about so much. I mean, this whole thing is a plan.
It is a plan, and it is, as I've been saying for years, at its foundation, the conspiracy is a mind game, and it has to be for a simple reason. The number of people in full awareness, or even major awareness, of what's happening and why and where the direction's going are so tiny compared with the target population that they cannot do it physically. They can in small areas with soldiers at the door and tanks in the streets, yes, but they cannot do it to 7 billion people. The only way they can do it and control 7 billion is to get them to perceive reality, perceive self, little me, no power, and all the rest.
It's all a magician's trick. That's what that's what the big government buildings are about. It's what the black uniforms are about. It's what this idea in all the dramas and shows about superheroes. The general public are cowardly and weak and pathetic. Only supermen can get something done. And now I go out and look at the public. They're so incredibly timid from just the way they were 20, 30 years ago when I was in high school and college. I mean, I'm not some tough guy. I'm not some adventurer. People think it's bold to go hang up posters against the government now. That's nothing. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, this is very much a time of a fork in the road, and which fork we take is completely in our power to decide. But it's a fork in the road between those that are getting pulled more and more into the five senses and the narrow, myopic perception of reality and personal power, and those that are awakening to the opposite. And what happens when you awaken to that greater self is something else happens, which you kind of alluded to earlier, which is that you start to get energized, because the more that we are imprisoned and enslaved in the bubble, that bubble is a bubble of energy as well as a bubble of awareness, and thus it constantly limits the amount of energy that we're actually working with. When you open your mind and let consciousness in, With that comes not only greater insight and greater awareness, but what comes with it is greater actual energy and vibrance and vitality because of what we're letting in.
Well said, David Icke. Let's look at what's happening in the 5 cents world, straight ahead and beyond. Now, there are hundreds of great products at InfoWarsTeam.com, but I want to point out the 3 that have helped me lose 37 pounds in just 2 months. Products like Beyond Tangy Tangerine, Pollen Burst, and Rebound. When I started taking the Tangy Tangerine and other products every day, I lost more than 37 pounds in just 2 months. Now that's results. I want to challenge my listeners to go to InfoWarsTeam.com and to order just 3 of their products, and you will see the changes in the way you look, feel, and in your appetite almost immediately. Start your journey to health and wellness today. InfoWarsTeam.com. About the endgame master plan. I know he's written about it. He's talked about it. He's got a new book coming out. And I agree with a lot of his analysis about, the nature of these people, whether they're delusional or not, who they think they are, what they're into, the occult, the fact that they see us as animals, the fact that they love suffering and pain. They're not like a normal person. It's a guild of psychopaths. And then some. They certainly believe what David Icke says they believe. Now, whether that is the case or not, whether they are what they think they are, the point is these people are out of their minds. They are totally and completely out of their minds and involved in eugenics, poisoning our food and water on record. David, this stuff's all coming out now. The Rockefeller documents, the UN's announcing they want to reduce population. Time Magazine, Newsweek are saying kill old people, kill children up to age 3. They're trying to get everybody just to accept pure evil that every culture knows is bad as good and say that good is bad. And they're now coming out in autopsy reports I saw a few months ago where most people that are now having autopsies done, they're finding nanotech in the brain that's in a lot of the processed foods. They've got designer viruses to try to make us submit, that, quote, make us not be angry anymore, that literally eat parts of our brain. That's mainstream news. So how do we stand up against that? These super weapons, these things they're about to deploy and are already testing on us. Because you talk about consciousness, everything they do now is targeted at the unconscious. That's why if you're somewhat awake, it's cartoonishly ridiculous. But for those that are in the trance state, they're believing everything the magician tells them. I mean, I'm babbling here, but you get where I'm going with this. What is their master plan? What is the technocracy, the drones, the control grid? What is it all about? Where do they want to take us with this?
Well, the thing is about mind, body, and consciousness is it's my feeling very strongly after nearly a quarter of a century of researching this full time that they have a frequency range which they are, if you like, it's their home stadium. And it's basically the frequency range of body-mind. It's the 5 senses and a bit deeper into the subconscious from there. When people become truly not awake, it was a good point you made earlier, and it's a point I make all the time. None of us are awake because the potential of full awakeness, which is to be all that is, has been, and ever can be in full awareness, is rather difficult through these biological body computers that we call the human body, which are filtering, and they're full of programs to filter and
our Earth suit interface is limited.
Yeah, very. But within that limitation, you can become massively more aware and massively more conscious than humanity is, beyond imagination more conscious. And once you enter those states, you're no longer playing away from home. You're no longer playing in their stadium. Not only can you see things that you can't see through the 5 senses, because it's basically looking, through the wrong end of a telescope when you get caught in the 5 senses alone. But you can also disconnect energetically from them, and they don't have the same impact upon you. Like someone who has an awakening consciousness, their frequency, and everyone's vibrating to a frequency. That's why they want DNA databases, or one of the reasons is because from the DNA they can assess and find the exact frequency that someone's vibrating or broadcasting on, and therefore they can fire technology like energy weapons at them.
And by the way, the mystics said that thousands of years ago in every culture. Now they've proven DNA is really an antenna, and that 96% they said was junk is not junk at all.
Well, this is an important point. You know, it's something I've gone into very, very deeply in the last little while, and I am today. I've been sitting in this seat now for 13 and a half hours since 5 o'clock this morning, actually working on some of that stuff. And, you know, what is happening is, you know, there's a Russian scientific research, there's some been done in America, where they found a language. This is so important. They found a language within the 98% or whatever of what they call junk DNA or non-coding DNA, which officially they don't know what it does. But these research teams have found a language in there, and it's a language that does not relate to the same coding as the few percent of DNA that they think, but not really, but they think they know about. And what they've also found, interestingly, is that this DNA language reflects the patterns of human language, because some people, linguists and what have you, that have looked deeply at this, they found that the patterns of the English language, the patterns of languages from South America and Africa and etc., actually, although they sound different, their actual patterns are the same. And
everything is an expression of the DNA. Stay there. This is the heaviest info. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us.
Georgia, he was looking for a soul to steal. He was in a...
Our guest is David Icke. He'll be with us about 15, 20 minutes in the next hour, and we'll be taking some phone calls later in the hour. If you'd like to join us with any questions or comments, 800-259-9231, specifically for myself or David Icke, 800-259-9231. Now, again, I've studied eugenics. I wanted to discover what the globalists actually believe. They're occultists. They believe that they are the descendants of advanced extraterrestrials. They call it directed transspermia. And I have broken down the secrets of Prometheus leaked. That film, that clip I did has about 500,000 views on YouTube, so you know you're finding the right one. And I'm not saying I believe this. I'm saying the global controllers say this. And by the 1850s, and I'm talking Galton, the Wedgwoods, the Huxleys, the Darwins, if you go back and read, and we've got all this research, the Darwins and all of them thought they were starmen. H.G. Wells was just their front 50 years later. He worked for those families on record. He wanted world government, a super science class, getting rid of the family, merging with machines. They envisioned this. Darwin, if you look it up, believed he channeled it. That's something they don't like to talk about because they want to make it non-religious. No, it's religious. It's totally religious. And you see in, as I predicted accurately because I had the script, in Prometheus, it's really humans that seeded themselves on Earth. That's what the globalists believe. They believe that they are made in the image of God, but that they are God and that the aliens are God. And that they have been genetically basically spliced. And you can argue that's the kind of stuff that's in the Old Testament and things. But the point is, whether you believe this or not, I don't want the New York Times saying I'm saying this. This is what the establishment believes. And if you look at the ancient symbol, several thousand years old, the caduceus symbol, I'm halfway pronouncing it right, the two twisted snakes, the symbol of medicine, and then you look at the symbol of DNA, there it is. Now, again, the point is there's a lot of things the controllers know that the general public doesn't know. But if you really study them, you realize what David's saying. The actual controllers themselves are enslaved and locked in, and they're very into programming. They're very into ritual. Look at the Queen of England, all the things they do. The truth is they're only in power because they're ruthless. They're like cancer. Doesn't mean it's dominant. Okay, David, I'm ranting. You've got the floor. Break down what I'm getting into here. If you have any comments on Prometheus.
Well, yeah. Well, I could talk for the next 3 or 4 hours on this subject after researching it in such depth for so long, and I'll give you my fix of it after all this time. What movies like Prometheus and so many others are doing now, they're telling us, and it's a part in a big way about preparing us and programming our perception to accept it, that there was extraterrestrial non-human intervention in human genetics. I've got a grandson who's I think he's about 5 now. I think just past 5. And I was round at his house the other day, and he was reading this little book, and this book was for kids of his age, and it was a story about shape-shifting hybrids, hybrid genetic people and super people and all the rest of it, all the stuff that you're getting in these movies. This is basically what happened. Human genetics was manipulated to turn us into a slave race. And it was done by encoding junk DNA, non-coding DNA, with emotional and perception programs, which if we get pulled only into the 5 senses and the lower mind, then those programs run our lives. And it is quite possible, people will be shocked by this, but it is very possible, and probably very likely, it's not uncommon, that people can go through their entire lives without having an original thought or emotional response that hasn't come from the DNA biological software program. Now, these bloodlines, these so-called elite bloodlines, they are different. They are different because they've got a different programming. They were specifically created with programs running in their junk DNA, which delete, first of all, and my goodness me, this will explain a lot of things, which delete the ability to manifest or feel empathy. They have no ability to feel empathy or to put themselves in the feelings of those who they target, their victims. None at all. 3,000 dead on 9/11, pepper bombing Tripoli, not a problem. Making kids starve in Africa in a world of plenty, not a problem. There's no emotional consequence. They cannot decode it. They cannot filter it. And the other thing that's in that's in their DNA is that it is programmed to worship these entities as gods. And this is what Satanism is about. Satanism is making human sacrifice to the gods. Now, who are the gods? They operate outside of human sight, which is pathetically narrow, what scientists call visible light, which is the only frequency range that we can decode into what we see as a world of the conscious mind, is so tiny, it's unbelievable. Even mainstream science says that the electromagnetic spectrum is about 0.005% of what exists in the universe, in mass, matter, and all the rest of it. Some people, scientists say it's a bit wider than that, but not by much. And visible light is only a tiny fraction of that 0.005% or a little bit more in the eyes of some scientists. So we're actually basically blind. And now, I've got a quote here from an article on DNA, which says this: from the characteristic form of this giant molecule, a wound double helix, the DNA represents an ideal electromagnetic antenna. On one hand, it is elongated and thus a blade which can take up very well electrical pulses. On the other hand, seen from above, it has the form of a ring and thus is a very magnetical antenna. So we are picking up, like a radio or anything that's a receiver transmitter, we are receiving and transmitting on the frequency that the receiver transmitters are tuned to. And what the idea is, and this is what the impact of this radiation agenda, of the mobile phone agenda, of the food and drink chemical agenda, probably of the chemtrail agenda, too, in part, everything has many reasons, is actually to manipulate the DNA so that it receives and transmits on a narrow and narrower band, which means that we are bringing into our awareness, our daily perception, less and less and less, unless we're conscious.
So these are psychological warfare overlay compulsions, and you know, the globalist again, all I know is this, David, and this is what gives some credibility to what you're saying. Certainly their psychology is what you say. They believe what you say. I've studied them. That's why they do these rituals. They, in fact, they just don't feel empathy. They actually enjoy hurting innocents. That's why every culture is run by a weird secret sect that demands you bring your babies to them so they can chop them up, cut their hearts out, throw them into pits to idols, eat them. You know, I mean, that's not normal people. Why does every society manifest that group? Regardless, this is what we faced with this system. But just to correct myself, it's not directed panspermia. I was saying directed transpermia. It's directed panspermia. And folks, look this up. This is in the big scientific books, you know, the Reuters, New York Times, the Huxleys, the Wedgwoods. 160 years ago, this whole school comes out and says, we're going to discover this DNA. We're going to do, and they created all the modern sciences, psychology, biometrics is 160 years old. Everything we are today, modern medicine, this group out of the British Empire, if you study it, it always leads back there. They created this modern world, and that's how they could write about atomic weapons 50 years before they were out. They could talk about DNA 100 years before they discovered it. How advanced is the secret technology they've got? Because in deep research of their own writings, there is no way they just envisioned all of this. What's happening?
Well, what it is directed information. That's what it is. Because, you know, we see, and this is, you know, when you get into quantum physics and the deeper levels of reality, what we see as a physical world is not a physical world at all. It's a holographic world, illusory physical. And it has many levels. It has the holographic level. It has a digital level. This was very well symbolized in the Matrix movies when Neo overcame death towards the end and saw everything as digital, and all the digital things on the screens of the computers of the Matrix. That was the digital level being symbolized of this reality. There's an electrical, electromagnetic level, and the foundation of it, in terms of its construct of everything, is a waveform level. Some people call it the vibrational level, but the waveform level. And therefore, everything we see in the holographic so-called physical world, whether it's food or drink or any of it, is actually in its base form a waveform information
Energy.
field. So when you consume rubbish in food and chemicals in food and drink, you are actually absorbing into your energy field distorted and twisted vibrational energetic information fields. And that's the level it's going on, Alex, because that distortion, that energetic twisting, distorts and twists the DNA which it interacts with, and thus changes and distorts the way that it decodes reality. Now, these particular bloodlines, they have a different DNA setup, which is one of the reasons they think they're so bloody special, which is actually decoding reality in a different way, not just with a lack of empathy, but they're actually able to access things in terms of their awareness of things that are beyond what humans can. This has been done specifically so that they can be in a situation of power and all the rest of it. And so what they're doing in their rituals and what have you is they're interacting with these gods. I mean, I've talked to endless people around the world who have actually participated in these rituals, most of them against their will, and they all tell the same story about how some of these horrific looking entities are manifest in the rituals because of the energetic fields that the rituals are designed to generate. And when you go into this whole area going way back in history, whenever these entities are talked about by the ancients, one thing always is, many things, but this thing is always there, invariably. They demanded human sacrifice. Credo Mutwa, a high Zulu shaman who's in his 90s now, a library of knowledge of ancient African lore and legends, he says that the legends say very clearly that cannibalism was introduced by these entities because they demanded demanded it. And from what you've researched and what have you, and others that have researched this, these people do drink blood and eat the flesh. They do. And what's happening is, because these entities are operating at a different frequency outside of visible light, they can absorb energy in a different way to we can. When we express emotion, for instance, or fear or terror, you see someone's body language, their face, everything expressing that terror. But you can't see the energy that is generating. They operate in frequency bands which are in sync with that energy, so they can absorb it, never mind see it.
And this is what the atheists don't get.
Human fear, collective and individual human fear. So the more wars there are, the more economic crashes with all the emotional fear and what that come from that, all the more illness and death there are, they're feeding off it. They feed off that energy of death.
You're absolutely on target with this, because if you look at it, everybody knows types that are psychic vampires. They love pain. They love to upset things. That's the state they like to get into. How many university studies, thousands, have proven the sixth sense, where you're at a restaurant, you feel somebody intensely looking at you, you turn around and there are their eyes? That has been proven in double-blind studies. This is what the controllers are aware of. But as you said, the ruling elite, every evidence is there that they themselves are a minion class and are basically addled and blind and don't know what's going on. I mean, it's and again, folks, the mystery, the majesty of being on a planet in space and all the incredible things around us, and we're worried about Bill Clinton and Obama and Mitt Romney and Dancing with the Stars. Everything is about narrowing what we're doing. Regardless of what you take away from this, that is a fact, and every culture was taken over by psychopathic killers. David Icke.
Well, this is another area that I'd like to talk about, which is very relevant to all this and explains a lot more things. You mentioned there about feeling the eyes of someone and turning around and they're looking at you. You're obviously not feeling their eyes. You're feeling their energy field for a simple reason. There's a great phrase which is absolutely profoundly true. Energy flows where attention goes. And so when someone is focusing their attention on you, they are focusing an energetic connection to you, which that attention generates. Thus, you feel that energetic channel, that attention, and you turn around and they're looking at you. Now, this brings us into a massively important area to understand why these people put symbols and what have you, like the all-seeing eye and the flame and all the other things all around us, and why the buildings are built in certain ways and all the rest of it, and the power of television. Energy flows where attention goes. And what they do is that they create these symbols which resonate energetically in frequency terms to these entities. The same frequency of the energy field is vibrating that those entities vibrate to. Therefore, when people are manipulated to focus their attention upon a symbol of these entities, then there is an energetic channel generated between the person observing and focusing and the entity, just as you feel that same situation in a restaurant when
it's an electrical connection, and they're not just sucking power out of everybody like the Matrix. They're also able to send information back.
Well, energy is information. Every time I say energy, I'm saying information. The whole universe is information, decoded and encoded information. Everything is. And it's manipulating that information that decides what is encoded, therefore what is decoded, that this whole conspiracy is founded on. So when you come to where I am now, and the summer in London, which is a major center of the Earth's energy grid, the Earth's
this is a giant worship fest of the Illuminati.
Yeah, but why? Why is the Illuminati and the families so centered in London? Why are they so focused in the city of London? Why? The answer is because they know, and this is why these pathetically small islands have had such a gigantic impact upon the world. It's because they came here a long time ago and settled one of their centers of operation.
Stay there. Got to go to break, Dave. We're going to come back with this. We'll also talk about all these... Sick of the globalist eugenicist control freaks adding poison to your water and laughing as you get sick and die? Start purifying your water with ProPure. My friends, I've done a lot of research, and the best gravity filter out there, bar none, is ProPure. And it's available discounted at Infowars.com. Its filters are silver impregnated to prevent bacterial growth. There's no priming required. It's NSF 42 certified. Optional fluoride filters can reduce fluoride up to 95%. Easy to set up and use. Doesn't require electricity. Purify water from lakes, streams, ponds, and wells. This filter system leaves in beneficial minerals, which is key. Save money by not buying bottled water and avoid BPA that leaches from the plastic. ProPure is the best gravity-fed filter out there. It's what my family uses. Infowars.com already has the lowest price on ProPure. But if you add the promo code WATER at checkout, you get an additional 10% off at Infowars.com. You can also call to order 888-253-3139. I want to know the globalist endgame from David Icke's research. We're going to ask him that in a moment when he finishes his point. By the way, symbolism is important. That's why I'm saying hang up posters everywhere exposing Obama as a dictator. We have a green link to some of the videos that are coming in the posters at Infowars.com on the right-hand top navigation bar. Stop Dictator Obama, Infowars.com. Also, you support the broadcast when you buy books, videos, T-shirts at Infowars.com or InfoWarsShop.com. Here's our newest shirt, End the TSA. And next time I fly, I'm going to videotape it too. I'm going to wear this through there. And I'm going to see if they get in my face. See, I'm not scared of them getting in my face. I want to draw them out. The system wants it all to be incremental, boiling us slowly. They don't want us to respond to them. So the new shirt, End the TSA. You ought to shoot video yourself with this. I mean, they get in your face, say, yeah, I don't want to be groped. I don't like you putting yourself in the way of travel. But you don't like it? You know, don't mess with my First Amendment. You want a civil rights violation lawsuit? You're not allowed to ask me about my shirt. Bunch of pervs. The point is, hey, they ought to name all these airports Jerry Sandusky International, okay? That's what they're into. And that's what all this is about. Psychologists admit this is training kids for this, which Icke exposes is another thing these psychic vampires do. David, I want to get into all these zombie attacks that are starting, where people just become total animals now. And because I guess from all the zombie programming on television, when they get into a subconscious mode, start trying to eat people. We see this in other cases in history when things start degenerating down to these lower bestial frequencies, as you call them. David, please continue.
Well, if I could just finish the point from a few minutes ago. These rituals in Britain and London this summer, the Olympics and the Diamond Jubilee and what have you, they're not obviously selected by random accident. It's been done and prepared for a long time, because the Earth has an energy field, yes, and it has an energy grid of force lines, which are called meridian lines or ley lines or whatever. This is a grid of energy, a grid of information. And where these lines cross, a vortex is created. Where lots and lots of these lines cross, an enormous vortex is created. And these vortexes are interdimensional gateways, because the vortex spins several realities in the same vortex.
And I got to interrupt, folks. Even if you don't believe this, the elite in their own writings believe this. That's why they build these Stonehenges all over the world at these sites. Ancient cultures thought something was going on, and the elites of today travel and build in those areas.
And London and the British Isles is one of the great centers, perhaps the great center of this entire global web of information, of energetic information and these ley lines vortexes. Thus, what they do in Britain, what they do in London in terms of rituals and which is the manipulation of this energy field, impacts itself on the entire global energy field, because that's the heart center from which it all flows out across the world. And what we're experiencing now this summer, and we're in the midst of, is a massive double ritual to do exactly exactly that. And of course, one of the especially with the Olympics, but also with the Diamond Jubilee.
They admit that's an Olympic. Hitler created it with the rings and all of it.
Yeah, and it's the flame. And the flame is also has the potential to be an interdimensional doorway. It's the nature of fire. This is why in their satanic rituals and Bohemian Grove, they have fires. They use fire because they know that
no, in Satanism, they just caught a guy doing it a few weeks ago. They burn a child. The burning is very important.
The fire is very much at the center of it because they know it's an interdimensional portal, or potentially so. And that's why when a lot of people and psychics and others, they look into fire, they see things, they see other dimensional things because it's through the fire. And at the end
Stay there, back in 1 minute. Okay, we got one little short segment here with David Icke, then another segment. And it's the next segment that I'll go to James, Scott, Colin, and Steve. I'll at least get to those 5-6 calls for David Icke. David, amazing discussions we're having right now. But finishing up with what's happening right now in England or the UK. But then the end game. I mean, is the end game just keep mining us, keep controlling us, merge us with machines, you know, just use us as body parts? That's what the elite openly say, that the future doesn't need us. They want machines now. They want to get rid of most of us. I mean, why do the technocrats want to do that, regardless of who they really are? And what is the end game if no one opposed them, if this big awakening didn't happen?
Well, if I could just finish very quickly the point, it's that this great focus on the Olympic flame, and the flames were very much part of the Diamond Jubilee celebrations. That focus creates an energetic connection with the flame, and thus when you have the Olympics with its audience of billions, that can be trawled from all over the world, because energy has no time or space. It just is. I mean, you know, distance doesn't matter. The connection matters, and thus London is going through, and this is very relevant to the entire world, a massive ongoing satanic ritual through this summer to change the nature of the Earth's energy field. And that's why one of the reasons I've got this event at Wembley in London on the 27th of October, to get thousands and thousands of people together for a whole day to negate and flip this thing, because we can do that. We're far more powerful than they are. In terms of the end game, well, it's been a process, Alex, of gathering more and more and more and more and more control of human perception. And the next stage, which they want, is the cyborgs. And we're being prepared for that with the movies, with Schwarzenegger and all these other things, to actually start to introduce technology that we call technology, because they see the human body as biological technology. They don't see it as we see it. But to introduce technology that we can understand to it, and that technology will externally give them more and more control. The microchips are classic, but there are other things that they want as well.
Nanotech they put into us, you name it, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like a road which is getting more and more and more extreme in every way. It's like walking down a road or a freeway, and it gets narrow and narrow and narrow and narrow until it's just a path. This is what they want to do to us in multiple ways, for the major reason, which is absolute mental, emotional, and what we call physical control. And that is all done through control of our perception. And the more bits of kit that they can put in, because they know the body's a biological computer, the more access they have to externally manipulate us, not least the microchip. That's the big thing to say no to at any price. Because, you know, they talk now about doing brain-computer interfacing, where you can sit at your computer and what you think comes up on the screen, and what you think to do the computer does.
Now it's not just Google tracking you, now they're in your brain. That's going to be two-way.
Yeah, that's not just, that's possible, rather, that whole technology, that whole connection. It's possible because although the two computers are massively different in terms of advancement, they are actually connecting two forms of a computer. One, a very advanced biological computer, which has the ability to think for itself. That's what the immune system's doing. And the other is...
By the way, David, I'm going to go get it during the break. Aaron wrote an article about this on Monday. actually Sunday, MIT and big think tanks are actually calling it a genetic overwrite and call our brain a biological computer and say they're just going to take it over with this new synthetic genetic system. So they're already invading with all of this with their nanotech. They call it biotech, but it's really nanotech. This is a total war we're under. We'll be right back with David Icke. Amazing. DavidIcke.com. He's got that big event in Wembley. Can't wait to see that. Alas, poor York, I knew him, Horatio, a fellow of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy. He hath bore me on his back 1,000 times, and now, abhorred in my imagination it is, my gorge rises at it all. And that is William Shakespeare, who was really a composite of different writers for an illuminous guild, writing in Hamlet, when they had dug up one grave to bury someone and found the skull of someone that took care of him as a child, the court jester. And again, you'll learn next Monday with a special video news piece why I have a real human skull here at the office and why I have that crocodilian 65 million year old saltwater crocodile skull. David Icke is our guest, and I really want to thank David for coming on. David, I want to go to calls as promised, but very briefly, because I want to get you back on and talk about this. You're having a big event to counter the globalist propaganda fest. You're having it at a big center, so it's going to get a lot of media attention. Very exciting to get people thinking. Tell folks about that. I guess they find out at davidicke.com.
Yeah, it's at Wembley Arena, which is a massive arena in London with the potential of 11,000 people, and but we can have anything between 5.5 to 11. We're going to comfortably get 5.5, and how many more than that we get depends on how many people decide to come, of course. But it's to do a number of things. First of all, what I mentioned earlier, which is to get all these people of like mind together and create a very different and massively powerful energy field in the same city that all this rubbish is going on of the opposite kind through the summer.
You should stream it live on the internet during key times too, so people all over the world can watch that can't make it.
Well, we'll see what we can do. But you know, the more people that can get actually in the arena, the better, because that energy is very, very important. But the other thing is that you mentioned there, to get a very, very large number of people together to hear information of this kind, and I'll be talking for about 9 hours.
Is revolutionary.
Yeah, but the point is that what I wanted to make a statement. Look, the world's not like it was before. It's changing. Why are all these massive numbers of people coming together to hear this information? What's going on? And as you say, the media will not be able to ignore it. And it's I think it's the most important thing I've done for a very long time. It is.
Well, October's hurtling towards us, so let's have you back up in a few months to really get into it in detail. Let's go ahead and go to some calls as promised. James in Texas, you're on with David Icke. He certainly gets you thinking, and that's something the globalists don't like, so he's good. Go ahead, James, you're on the air.
Hey, 2 days ago I was Oz, now I'm just James. I've declared myself a soft kill, and it is the most freeing thing that you can ever do to yourself. Just declare yourself a soft kill and go on and just get after this. And David Icke, to you, I would say, to the 5,500 that you have show up, have them be conduits. Have them accept the energy that we're all going to send.
Well, more than that, I mean, by energy, the energy of waking up and going out and reaching out and showing the numbers. Do you have a question for David Icke, sir?
The question I have for David Icke is, why it's basically bounding on what he's already been saying. You know, why can't we walk through walls? The reason is what he's saying. I mean, he's absolutely correct, and I just wanted to piggyback on that and get out.
Yeah, my point is the elites believe in all the things David Icke is saying, whether it's totally true or not. This is the real deal. I appreciate your call, James. We got to move quick.
The thing very quickly, that, you know, we live in a holographic world, which is not physical, but I'm sitting in a chair and I'm not falling on the floor. And we think by the conscious mind's perception that it is something physical that's stopping me walking through the wall or falling through the chair. But it's actually electromagnetic resistance of two different electromagnetic fields or types of field. But when we decode it through, it appears to have solidity. That's the way. And if you can get yourself into a mode, an energetic mode, where you can sync with these other fields, then you can walk through apparently inanimate objects. But it's a hell of a challenge.
Well, that's what the Pentagon's working on, teleportation. They've now actually been able to do that. Let's go ahead and talk to Scott in Florida. Scott, you're on the air. Go ahead. We got to move quick, folks.
Okay. Hey, it's a great honor to talk to you, David. A great honor to talk to you, Alex. David, I'm 21 years old right now. I literally opened up your first book in 2005. In my junior year of high school, and I've been following you ever since, following your research. My quick question is pretty much in your book, which was the first book that I read, Infinite Love is the Only Truth, Everything Else is an Illusion. You pretty much go into saying how purpose controls us. And then you go on to say how, like in the end, it's purpose controls us, but it's what defines us, but you have to go beyond purpose. And in the end,
well, sure, most people have no purpose. They're spectators. They're not even conscious. They're not even real. And the globalists know that. They're biological androids that respond to the programming. That's 100% true. David?
Well, yeah. Did you want to finish that question, Scott?
The point was that when you have a purpose against something, you create, like, an opposite, something for it to be a conduit of.
Yeah, the point about the manipulation is that we create our experienced reality from our sense of reality. The one creates the other. And we can do that directly, independently. But what the whole conspiracy is about, by these people that understand this process, they are trying to manipulate us by manipulating our sense of reality. They know that through that we will
the tail wagging the dog. Got to move quick.
That experienced reality, and that means that they're constantly trying to program our sense of reality, our perception of reality, because they know that becomes the reality of the experience. And therefore what they're trying to do is give us their perception of reality, which is we are little people, we are limited, we have no power. And that's the world we live in if we accept that nonsense.
Yeah, we got to move quick or we won't be able to get to any more of these calls. We only got about 5 minutes. Kareem in London, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, Alex? Basically, well, I live in Stratford. I live where they're hosting the Olympics. And basically, word on the street is that there's a lot of rumors going on and whatnot. So having listened to your show, and I know you've touched on it a couple of times, but is there anything that you could basically advise the residents or the people that live within the borough? There's
a lot of talk about staged terror attacks, but David, is over there with you. I don't know if that's going to happen. They're going to use it as a police state conditioning operation, a big ritual of police state. David, your comments to him. I mean, I would get out of there for the Olympics, wouldn't you?
Well, if I could, I would, yeah. I mean, obviously, people struggling for money and stuff like that often don't have a choice of to get out. But if they could, or they got friends, I'd get out of there for no other reason than the energy things that are going on there and in the unseen. Whether they'll actually come up with a false flag event when all the world's watching, well, who knows? But I tell you this, when it was announced years and years ago now that London were seeking to get the 2012 Olympic Games. It was a gimme. 2012, I don't agree with all the 2012 stuff, that has been talked about, but it's a focus year, and they've made it a focus year. That and London was so synchronistic, so symbiotic in their relationship. There was no way that London wasn't going to get it. So it's there for a massive reason. It might be just energetic, but it might be more than that.
Exactly. Everybody can just see the propaganda and also sense something big. Thank you so much, Kareem. Scott in Ohio, moving quick here. Go ahead.
Hello, Alex and David. I just have a quick question. Have you heard of Litha, the Return of Darkness ceremony? It's supposed to be held at Kimball Castle tonight, or a.k.a. Cherokee Ranch in Colorado. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of those places out there, but I never really see any proof. Bohemian Grove does do rituals because I've infiltrated and documented it. David?
Well, it's the summer solstice today, isn't it? The 21st. And the Druids were at Stonehenge this morning. Nothing negative about that. That's their belief system. Good luck to them. But, you know, it's no accident that Prince William was induced to be born on the summer solstice, so that they play with these energies, these astronomical energies and astrological energies all the time.
They believe in it. I mean, all these elites are into the occult. It's not debatable.
Rituals will be going on today, elite rituals all over the world in the different countries. Absolutely.
Have you heard of the specific castle he mentioned?
No, but I mean, it's got castle after it, and they love castles. I mean, they've got their European castles all over the place. I mean, they just love the castles and the palaces and all that, because part of their genetics, it has an absolute obsession with hierarchy. And thus they are absolutely obsessed with hierarchy and position and everyone in their place. This is why the Rothschilds have run around all over the bloody place getting barons and lords in front of their names. They're obsessed with it. And the royal family, of course, are a classic.
Yeah, it shows how primitive they are. Look at this. Fidelity Investments funding synthetic biology takeover of life. Infowars.com. Lab-created artificial species will outnumber life 50-1. Financial firm says Fidelity is telling their investors they're going to overwrite, as if none of us have a say, as if they just say this is the future. I mean, this is madness. What they're saying is 10 times wilder than what you're saying, David.
Yeah, Fidelity Investments. Oh, they still got the pyramid as their logo. They did a few years ago. Anyway.
They certainly do. The shining pyramid. We're out of time, David. Promise you'll come back on in the next few months.
Oh, not a problem, mates. I've enjoyed it.
I'm going to come say bye to you during the break. Thank you so much. Got 30 seconds. Closing comments, David.
Well, you know, just what we've talked about today is massively encouraging, because this information that they've suppressed for thousands of years, this really, you know, getting really in the rabbit hole, deep stuff about how they're doing it, is coming out, and more and more people are opening their minds to it. And thus, once we start to get the understanding of how they're doing it, we can stop them doing it. It's when we don't know how they're doing it.
Well said. DavidIcke.com. Alex Jones here. We'll be back in a moment. Infowars.com. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.